So this is very, very concerning. Very concerning. I am shocked. I am really shocked. And I'll have to admit that I was very, very wrong. The complete opposite in my predictions video. And I'm at a loss for words. Verizon reported Q1 earnings this morning. And you guys are seeing the operating metrics chart. And they reported a net loss of 356,000 customers in the consumer segment, which they had been struggling in for quite some time. But they started to report a turnaround, a positive momentum. And that was just completely derailed in just this first quarter of 2025. At this point in time, and I will listen in on the earnings call, and I'm sure we're going to hear Verizon talk about differentiated value proposition and new offerings in the market. And what I'll have to say to that after this earnings is none of it is working. They can go down the line with everything that they offer, right? If you just look at the first quarter, how aggressive they've been. AT&T had to make an adjustment to a Verizon offer after January. That was a real thing. Verizon started any phone, any condition. They've been promotionally the most active. They've had some of the better offerings in the market. And yet, they still took a net loss of 356,000 customers. That is crazy. That is crazy. And that's why I had to admit that I was wrong in my predictions video. And they ended up losing between 300 to 400,000. Right? I thought they were going to gain 300 to 400,000. They ended up losing between 300 to 400,000. That is crazy. Churn came in at 0.90, which is relatively similar to what they've been reporting in on churn. So that tells me they're not growing. They're not growing enough. There's not enough volume. So yesterday, Sampath, I don't know if the interview happened yesterday, but it was released yesterday by The Verge, and I listened in on it. And Sampath said something along the lines of them having 40% of the customer base on a premium unlimited plan, and that's growing. So that tells me that they have margins that they need to lower, right? So they did for the quarter. They did have a earnings beat, which tells us that they are financially still strong and getting stronger financially, but they are losing customers at an alarming rate. If this continues, 356,000 in a quarter where you were promotionally active still is crazy. 356,000 is a loss that Sprint used to post during Network Vision when the network was, going through its phases and a lot of service interruption. Verizon is scaling C-band into tier 2 and tier 3 markets. So the whole talk of where we expand C-band, our churn is going down. They ended up with a bigger loss than the first 2 quarters of 2024 combined in just this first quarter. That's crazy. So the competition is really rocking Verizon. Even looking at business, there's a slowdown in their business ads. And I guarantee you, once AT&T and T-Mobile report, they're going to be far higher on overall numbers. AT&T and T-Mobile do not report numbers individually or broken down like Verizon does, but I can guarantee you AT&T and T-Mobile are going to be far higher on positive net ads versus Verizon. Far, far higher. So, as I stated, the financials look okay. Capital expenditure is still similar to close to what they spent last year in the same quarter. They had cash flow. They have a higher cash flow from operations in this quarter. Free cash flow is higher this quarter. So that financially, they're still strong and they're still spending on the network. And C-band is still expanding, and they now have more scale of C-band, of course, obviously, than they did a quarter ago last year. But they still lost a ton of customers. So until we see that change consistently, I really don't want to hear the whole value proposition and this, that, and the third, because it's not working. The numbers show us that it's not working. If you're losing that many customers, and who cares where they're going? They can be going to prepaid. They can be going to Verizon's own value proposition, T-Mobile, AT&T. I mean, at this point, Verizon's just donating to whoever out there. So we'll see how this goes during the earnings call. There might be some more updates, so stay tuned for another video later on today. We'll talk about this some more, a longer video. And then, AT&T reports tomorrow, T-Mobile reports the day after that. But this is concerning. This is very, very, very concerning. Like I said before, I admit I was wrong. This completely threw me off, and we'll see what happens during the call. But this is shocking right here. This is shocking. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. See y'all in the next one. Peace.